Welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and I am the host of the journey. And we are about to move into the beginning of August. And for me, August reminds me of the beginning of school. And when the beginning of school happens, for being a long-time football player as well, then later in life, having the opportunity to coach, it reminds me of football season. Somewhere with football season ending in February with the Super Bowl, and it's about June, beginning of July, I really start craving wanting to watch football again. And with August beginning, it is definitely one of my favorite times of the year, as well as what also comes with the change of season into the fall. As I've mentioned numerous times in the past, that what I didn't realize when I was competing, either as a wrestler or running track or in football, and then later in bodybuilding, what I didn't realize is that the preparation in those sports, in those activities, was probably a greater benefit than any particular outcome. The energy that I put into the mental and physical energy that I put into hoping, wishing, striving for certain types of outcomes seem to take the majority, sometimes even taking the majority of the pleasure and the fun out of those activities. But I was so driven toward wanting success on the field or the mat or the stage, whatever it may have been. But today, I realized that the greatest benefit of it by far was that it was preparing me for life. Those little things that at the time I thought may only be beneficial for football or wrestling, or when I was bodybuilding. There was a concept that one of my coaches would talk about. He would, in the midst of any type of contact sport, there are going to be, you're going to get banged up. It's just inevitable. It's part of what happens in the game. And when you first receive that blow or whatever it may be, and causes that acute pain, and at first there could be a level of shock, that is there something really wrong. And I remember the first time going to the sideline and being asked, are you injured or are you hurt? And I remember later watching the coach talk to another player and asking the player the same thing, or maybe more importantly, inviting the student athlete into self-evaluation. Am I hurt or am I injured? Am I hurting because of what I just experienced, or am I injured? If I'm injured, then it is best that I hold tight and get medical personnel to come in and to identify what is wrong so that I don't make a bigger problem. If I'm hurt, then that means after the immediacy and the acuteness of the sting of whatever the blow was, that it's not going to make my situation worse. It's just that I have as they would say, a bruise or some type of laceration or cut or something like that. So this differentiating between, am I hurt or am I injured, for me was something that was a game changer. The problem is that I couldn't always myself discern, because of the acuteness of the pain, if this was me just being hurt, or was it something bigger. It was an injury. That if I continued attempting to move or attempting to play, that the injury would only get worse by continuing the movement. And I remember, and I've talked about the injury that I experienced when I was out in Colorado, where there was some definite indications that there was something more going on because of the immediacy of the swelling. Or another time when I broke a bone, first I remember breaking my hand, later breaking my leg, and my big toe. That there was this immediate feeling of nauseism that comes when I've experienced broken bones, which is definitely a different indication than something that is a bruise because of a blow. So those are sometimes indications. In this case, when I had the quadricep quadricep tendon rupture when I was out in Colorado, there was acute pain when I attempted to move the joint, but because of the trauma to the joint and the immediate swelling, there wasn't acute pain if I didn't move. Trying to get out of the rocks and make it back to the starting point, I ended up continuing to tear the tendon. Wasn't my intent, but it was trying to get out of the situation that I was in. But let's say we have, through the assistance of professionals, medical professionals, we have determined that this is not an injury, but this is the result of being hurt. Then what do we do then? Because we're experiencing acute pain. Do we rest it? Do we avoid any type of movement? Over the weekend, I was out of town for my niece's wedding, and the combination of helping with the wedding and activities and going from activity to activity, sleeping in a different bed, eating on a different schedule, not hydrating like I normally did, not having the same exercise and stretching opportunities or taking the stretching opportunities that I normally would. I woke up Monday morning feeling quite a bit of discomfort as a result of a couple days absence of my normal activity level. But I knew, though my neck felt like there was a pinched nerve, and then of course I noted to myself that my chiropractor was on vacation at this particular time, and it was going to be 2 weeks before I went to therapy or went to the chiropractor to get adjusted. There was a part of me that wanted to avoid going downstairs to my gym. There was a part of me that wanted to not attempt to try to work this out. But I knew that because I wasn't going to get relief by going to the chiropractor, that I needed to do something to try to get some relief, because the discomfort in my neck and in my lower back was it felt like it was increasing. It was pretty distracting. So the combination of some meditation, of doing some light aerobic activity with a stationary bike to warm up, as I proceeded through doing extra stretching and doing a couple other things to manipulate and do some more elongating of the muscle, what I noticed was that my neck had more movement and was less restricted than before I started. That by actually working through the movements, that I had more mobility and an increase in flexibility and a decrease in pain. My first tendency was to want to avoid moving toward the discomfort or moving away from anything that would cause that discomfort. And what I realized, once again, was that by moving into the discomfort when you're hurt and not injured is metaphorically one of the keys to getting actually relief. Now, we can talk about this also applies to other things, that if it has to do with writing a paper or preparing for an exam or a test, or if there's something around that you have to do on even a smaller scale, even a house project, that procrastination avoidance versus taking it on is only going to make the anxiety about it hanging over your head worse. That if there's some trauma that you've experienced in the past, avoiding it has a tendency to only increase a negative narrative that you tell yourself about what have happened to you. That the idea of, with a safe person in a safe space, moving toward that pain is actually going to give you relief versus the avoidance of it. Again, this idea of sports, similar to art, can teach us how to navigate through our daily lives, or sometimes even bigger things that have been impacting us for many years. This idea of moving toward the discomfort when we're hurting may actually be the point of giving relief. So, as we end for the day, I want to just want to stress this idea that when we are injured, like I was out in Colorado, moving toward it actually is going to cause the injury to be greater, which is what I did. But if it's something like that I had experiencing this morning with physical pain that had to do with being hurt, or I was hurting, and had to do with muscle spasm and impingement, I wasn't going to further injure myself. What actually I did was get relief by moving into the pain. So when you are noticing that acute discomfort, psychologically, emotionally, physically, first become aware and attempt to discern, is this an injury or am I just hurt? And with the proper movement or the proper individuals around you in the proper space, moving into that pain may very well be, paradoxically, the way to give you relief. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. And if you do know someone that may benefit from this reflection, please share it to them. All right. Look forward to seeing you next week.